Hello, everyone. Welcome to joining this webinar, 3 Things You Didn't Know About Citizenship Laws in Poland. My name is Anouk and I am the Marketing and Communications Coordinator at Polaron. It's really nice to have you all here, and let's get right into it. Yes. So what will we cover today? How did citizenship laws evolve over time in Poland? How did these laws discriminate against women? And how have these laws been interpreted regarding women born in countries where the law of soil applies? And please stick around for a live Q&A session at the end of this webinar. I really encourage you to paste any comments or questions that you have in the chat. Today we have with us our moderator, our founder and director, Eva Hussain. Thank you so much for being here, Eva.
Thanks, Anouk.
Thank you. And then also with us today, we have our guest speaker, Dorota Błachniu. She is our Polish citizenship manager and a very huge expert in everything regarding Polish citizenship regulations. It's an honor to have you here, Dorota.
Hello, Eva. Hello, Anouk.
A little bit about Polaron before we jump in. Since 2003, we have been helping over 50,000 people obtaining their EU citizenship and reconnect with their European heritage. So if you are interested in a free eligibility assessment, you can scan the QR code that you see here at the top. Our team is always here for you to see if you're eligible or with any questions you may have. So without further ado, let's jump right into it, and over to you, Eva.
Thank you so much, Anouk, and thank you for that warm introduction. I'm going to bring Dorota in just to give us a brief introduction about citizenship laws, because many of you might know, but prior to 1918, there was no Poland for a long time, so for 123 years. So the first set of laws were introduced in 1920. And I know that we'll go into the Polish laws in a little bit of detail later on, Dorota. But can you just maybe give us a quick introduction about how citizenship laws, generally speaking, evolved?
So, okay, from the very beginning, when we started talking about, when we can start talking about the idea of Polish citizenship, the main idea was to base it on the right of the blood, which means that if someone was born from the Polish parents, it automatically acquired Polish citizenship. And for those who already lived in 1918, it was that if they were just a residents of the Polish state, they automatically became Polish citizens.
So in other words, just to put it in the context, when after World War I, when the state of Poland was reestablished, obviously it took the lawmakers a couple of years to put laws in place. But prior to that, there was no Polish citizenship because there was no Poland as a country. So ever since then, Poland has what's called the law of blood, or what that means, as Dorota said, is that it doesn't matter where you are born. What matters that you have one direct ancestor that's Polish. So that could be a parent, your grandparent, your great-grandparent. It just really depends when they left the country. But that concept of Polish citizenship was only introduced in Poland in 1920. And we are talking about women today, Dorota, and we are talking about discrimination. Can you take us through what that means and why those laws were so discriminatory, given that Poland was one of the first countries actually in the world, I think, that gave women the right to vote?
Yeah, just a few days after Poland regained its independence, the head of state, Marszałek Józef Piłsudski, granted Polish women those voting rights. But yeah, it was the end of their privileges, unfortunately, because in the First Citizenship Act, there were a lot of discriminatory provisions. And what we need to remember that is Poland is the country where the Christian values are really deeply grounded, and the patriarchal system of the society is also granted in the heads of Polish people. So
Okay.
yeah, so this is the citizenship law was also discriminatory against women.
And of course, when we know historically that Poland was the first country in Europe that had a constitution, that it was only the second country in the world that had a constitution after United States, this kind of clashes a little bit because it is a very, it's always been a very progressive and inclusive country. And the other point I wanted to make is that those discriminatory laws were not in particular unusual, like many, many other countries had them. So all of that was changed in 1951, and we'll go through all these different laws shortly. So Dorota, I wanted to ask you this in the context of other jurisdictions or other countries, given that Poland is known to be quite progressive in this space, in that it was only the first country in Europe that had a constitution, second country in the world to have a constitution after US. And these laws that discriminated against women were not that unusual, like lots of countries had them. What does it mean specifically to descendants of women who want to pursue citizenship now?
Yeah, that we are not always able to proceed when the only Polish ancestor is a woman. Because, for example, children born in wedlock were able to obtain only citizenship through their fathers. So if the only Polish parent was a mother, it was not possible to pass Polish citizenship further. That only man was able to pass citizenship, Polish citizenship on her new wife, and that the man was responsible for loss of citizenship of the whole family. So even if only the man acquired lost Polish citizenship, it means for the whole family, even for the woman and the children, that all of them lost Polish citizenship, regardless if they also met those conditions of losing Polish citizenship, and even if that meant that they become stateless.
So that's a really good segue onto our next topic, and that is how these laws evolve over time. So I'm just going to summarize for everyone that's watching that basically when in 1920, when the Polish lawmakers enacted these laws, they basically said that if you happen to be on the territory of Poland and you do not hold another citizenship, you are Polish. And you don't have to do anything. We consider you Polish. And they also provided for future generations, the lawmakers, and they said, if you are Polish, all your future generations are also going to be Polish, basically, at a basic level. And that also applied to people that had already left the country but did not naturalize. So we'll cover that maybe another time. But if you think about it, Dorota, these laws were quite flexible and generous, but they had some restrictions, right? So the first 1920 law until 1951, how was it restrictive towards anybody at that time, and any Polish citizens or people that wanted to reclaim citizenship?
Yeah, for example, it was not possible to hold dual citizenship, and every woman who naturalized in another country automatically lost her Polish citizenship. And again, it was not the case of the Polish men, because they were protected by the obligation of military service in Poland.
So the other curious thing about the Polish laws at the time, until 1951, was that it was the husband, being the head of the family, that was in charge of citizenship for the wife and any minor children. And you mentioned military obligations, so that's not written into the citizenship laws. It's like a law that kind of intersects with citizenship law, and means that if you're a male, regardless of where you lived, you were de facto required to serve in the Polish army, and that in turn protected you from losing citizenship. But it didn't apply to women, just to men. Yeah. So And I guess it's fair to say as well that when people's applications are assessed today, they go back over time, over a timeline, to see what happened to your ancestors. So that's why it's important to know how this laws changed. So, for example, in 1920, you've already mentioned how they work. What happened in 1951? What was the major change there?
Yeah, after the war, this approach had to change. Of course, it took some time to create new citizenship law in this post-war era, but on January 1951, there was introduced Second Citizenship Act, which was an answer to this post-war era that many records had been destroyed, and it was no longer possible to establish if the child was born in or out of wedlock, if the wedlock actually was done. And yeah, and there was this act was a little bit more progressive for women also, because women were able to hold dual citizenship independently, and the loss of citizenship of the husband wasn't connected with the loss of citizenship of the wife.
So she, being a woman, had her own independent citizenship at any time. So after 1951, is that right?
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. So explain to us another thing, because people often get confused. Because what happened before 1951 is that you could, as a woman, you could lose your citizenship by marrying, but it depended on what citizenship your husband held. Is that right? Could you explain to us how that worked?
Yeah, exactly. It depends on the citizenship of citizenship law of the husband. Yeah, because if for example, in the United States till 1922, it was possible to acquire citizenship through marriage, but after this date, it was not possible. So it is always necessary to check the regulation of the another country also, because it was also a Polish case till 1951 that all women who were married to Polish citizen automatically acquired Polish citizenship.
Oh, interesting. So even if they held some other citizenship, according to the Polish law, they became Polish by virtue of that marriage, yeah?
Yes.
Okay. And in other countries, if you were able, as a woman, marry and become a citizen of that country, then you'd lose your Polish citizenship, essentially. And you mentioned USA, that was 1922. I think UK up to 1946. In Australia, I believe it was 1948 when they changed those laws. So when we assess cases, we need to look, and if you want to pursue it under your female line, so your mother, grandmother, great-grandmother, we need to know what year she married and to whom, and what laws were applicable in the country of the citizenship of the husband. So hopefully that's clear now. It's a bit that can be a little bit confusing. Okay, so we are at 1951, Dorota. What happens next in the Polish laws?
Next, in the next citizenship law was introduced in 1962. And this law introduced 1 year deadline for acknowledging a child in order for child to acquire Polish citizenship. And it was possible to acquire citizenship for both mother and father. And
so you only needed one parent, basically, not
only
both.
one parent, yeah.
Right, okay.
And in 2012, law introduced the possibility of acquiring Polish citizenship through adoption, and also possibility of the restoration of Polish citizenship.
So if you lost it or renounced it, you can now get it back. And that's only since 2012.
Yeah, now it's possible.
Okay, so let me take you back a step though, because you mentioned this curious law in Poland that if you do not register your child's birth certificate within 12 months, what happens?
Yes, since 1962, when this regulation was introduced, if the birth certificate wasn't registered within a year, there is no possibility to prove that the child acquired Polish citizenship from the parents.
So therefore, the child is not born a Polish citizen.
Yeah, exactly. Unfortunately, yes.
And even until today, parents have 12 months to do it.
Yes.
Right. Okay. So we're going to go on to the next question, and we're going to go back to those women again, because we mentioned the laws and how they evolved over time. And today we know that they're quite flexible. But when we go back to the legislation over time, there's something quite curious that happens in countries where law of soil applies. Can you tell us what the law of soil is and how it works?
It means that if you were born in the country where the law of soil applies, you automatically become a citizen of this country. And it applies for mostly of our clients, I think, because from the US or the Canada. And if you are talking about this discrimination against Polish women, it meant that the woman born in this country where this law of soil applied automatically acquired Polish citizenship by birth from the Polish parents and the citizenship of the country where she was born. But after turning 18, she lost Polish citizenship because at that time it was not possible to hold dual citizenship for women independently. But this interpretation had changed 2 years ago again, and we are now in another position. We are able to proceed with those women.
So just so that we can make this clear for people that are watching the webinar, basically, if you imagine that I had a grandmother who happened to be born in America, let's say 1926, she is born as a US citizen because in the US, they have what's called the law of soil, meaning that if you're born in the country, you're already a US citizen. But at the same time, she's also, if she has a Polish father, she is also a Polish citizen, right? And that's a conflict that the Polish courts interpreted differently because they couldn't really say whether someone was born first American or first Polish, like you're born at the same time. And the way that they interpreted this law is that the woman was in fact born Polish and American, but when she turned 18, being female and not being protected by the conscription law, she would lose her citizenship. Is that right? Is that how we could explain it?
Yeah, exactly. And recently, Polish courts recognized that this regulation were really unfair to women. And as you said, it's impossible to determine which citizenship came first. And because of that, we are not able to determine if female lost her Polish citizenship after turning 18.
And I can remember one particular case when we took, we guarantee outcome of people's cases. So when we took it on, our client was eligible. When we submitted the application, he was rejected because the interpretation of the law changed midway. We went through the process of appeal. We were not successful, and eventually started making moves to apply for grant of citizenship, which is the presidential pathway. And all of a sudden we heard that they changed the interpretation of the law again, and the client is now a happy holder of a Polish passport through confirmation of citizenship. But it just kept changing, not so much the law, but the way that the law is being interpreted. So thank you for explaining all of that so clearly. And as you said, nowadays, if there's a female born in America, their descendants are likely to be eligible. And this is before 1951, before the laws changed. I think we might have just a few minutes for questions. Anouk, I will ask you maybe to ask those questions to us, if that's okay with you. Go ahead.
Yes, that was wonderful, by the way. So we have one question what if I was in one of these situations and got refused? Can I apply again?
That's a really good question. And when we were preparing for the webinar, I said, of course, but the true answer is what, Dorota?
Unfortunately, we are not able to do this because if the decision was issued, it is not possible to change it based only of the change of the interpretation of the law. We can change the decision only based of new evidence. And this change of interpretation is not a new evidence. It's just new approach of the courts, how they see those cases.
So in other words, once the Polish government has made a ruling based on the current interpretation, that cannot be changed. But if another family member that's eligible applies, what happens then?
Yeah, it's a little bit unfair, I think, because we are not able to change the previous negative decision, but we are able to proceed with the other family members, like brother or sister or even a father.
Interesting. Thank you, Dorota. What other questions do we have, Anouk?
So we have a question from Heather, and Heather asks, my grandmother came to the US after 1920, married a Polish man in the US, gave birth to my father, and never became a naturalized citizen. Would I be eligible?
Dorota, do we have enough information to give Heather a direct answer?
I think that it's not enough information. That's why we always suggest contacting us, because we provide free eligibility assessments, because we need to know lots more details, like the date of birth of the next generation, the date of marriage of this grandmother, and many others.
Many other things. And sometimes when we look into people's backgrounds, we discover adoptions, things like changes of names. We, several times we discovered people that were basically hiding under assumed identities. So, and we often learn through the work that we do that people don't know certain information. So for us to be able to precisely guarantee someone's case, we need to ask a lot of questions. It can be time-consuming and frustrating, but in the end, we only take cases on that are bound to succeed. So Heather, we need to ask a few more questions. It's likely actually that you're eligible, but we need to know a few more things. So feel free to get in touch. Anouk, I think we've only got a couple of minutes left, so go ahead if there's any other questions.
Maybe you have time for one more. There was someone, asking, I was born in a country with a different legal system, but my parents are Polish. Does that affect my eligibility for citizenship?
I wonder what this person means by a different legal system, but I'm assuming that it's probably a place like South Africa where you might not be able to hold dual citizenship, and you have to ask the South African permission to apply for citizenship, but it doesn't apply if you were born Polish. But there are countries where you cannot. So perhaps we could speak to that a little bit, Dorota. Like how do different legal systems clash or otherwise with the Polish legal system?
Unless they renounce their Polish citizenship officially in front of Polish authorities, it doesn't really affect, because if you were born Polish citizen, you are just Polish citizen for the Polish authorities, no matter if you went through this official procedure of confirming Polish citizenship. Yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you. I think we're out of time, so I'll hand back over to you, Anouk, but not before saying a big thank you to Dorota for her knowledge and patience and very kindly explaining these very, very complex laws. Of course, we encourage you to contact us. Over to you, Anouk. What do people need to do if they want to pursue Polish citizenship with us?
Yes, thank you so much. So if people want to pursue, you can please mail us or call us. You can follow us on social media. We have a dedicated Facebook page, but also a discussion group where you can go with all your questions and answers, where we created a lovely community that's open for everyone to join. And I really encourage you to get in touch, because our team is here from all over the world. There's always someone who can get in touch very easily. So yeah, we're here on every medium for you.
So go ahead and contact us. And thank you, Anouk, for setting this up today. Thank you so much, Dorota, for speaking with us. And we'll see you next time whenever we see you.